And the whole business is underpinned by a web of lies, deceit, false promises. As Duncan says, there's a prey on vulnerable people. Promises that turn into nightmares, dreams of a better life. What about the third element, the business? It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And again, according to UN statistics, they say between $12 billion and $32 billion. I know at her introduction, Lisa told us it was the third. We have drugs, we have arms. But actually, Lisa, it's the second. It has become the second. It has second place now in the world economy. And there are massage parlors, lap dancing clubs, escort agencies, brothels, internet sites, hotels. It's commercial sex, and it's pay as you go, and it's driven by demand. I believe firmly that's the engine driving it. Yes, there is the poverty factor. Yes, there is the prey on vulnerable people. If there is no demand, there's no supply. In the law of economics, if there is no supply, there is no business. If there is no business, there's no market. If there's no supply, there's no market. Sex tourism, then, is the reverse of sex trafficking. And usually here it's the richer countries going to the poorer, but not always so. It's within countries as well, as in the example of Mumbai. But most of the young women who are in Mumbai, who were there in those institutions in Mumbai, were coming from Nepal, from Bangladesh, from the Punjab, and from the poorer parts of India. Mumbai is also a hub. It's not just an area of destination, it's also origin, and it's also transit. This is a global problem. Duncan just mentioned it. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's also local. It's in our towns and our cities, carried out mainly by men who are part of the core fabric of our local communities. Sadly for me, there are a number of women involved too. But it's a double whammy because the women become the traffickers if they sometimes are trafficked. They become the mules. Now, is there any hope at all? Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't have hope. Of course there is hope. Things can change. We've had your government recently apologizing to the native peoples, the indigenous peoples of this land. Of course there is hope. There are two approaches to demand. There's the approach of the Netherlands, and then there's the approach of Sweden. I would suggest to Duncan that perhaps Australia might go down the path of Sweden. Let me tell you what Sweden does, as opposed to the Netherlands. The Netherlands legalizes prostitution, but it criminalizes traffickers, forced trafficking. Now, I make the link between these two. Sweden, on the other hand, has a multi-pronged approach. It prosecutes the buyers, the pimps, the brothel owners, the traffickers, and protects the bought. Not only that, in 1999, Sweden eliminated criminal penalties against the bought, funded services for women, directed strong penalties against pimps and brothel owners, prosecutes the buyers, as I said, and put in place a public education campaign. What are the results of all of this? There's a marked decline in sex trafficking, and Sweden is a no-go area. It's a country where the traffickers know they can't go, because Sweden sends out a very clear message. Human beings are not for sale. What can you and I do about it? Every one of us can do something, however small. Let's challenge the behavior, the concept of what it means to be a real man. Let's not say this is what men do. Let's not make excuses. Let's see the link between prostitution and trafficking, because there is a link, and I can give you a host of statistics on that. Let's examine the role of the internet in promoting the commercialization of the human body, the commercialization of young women, the sexualization and the abuse of women and children in production and consumption of pornography. Again, the researchers tell us that there is one small step between the virtual and the real. There's a growing consensus that addressing demand is key to preventing human trafficking. And I believe that if we stop the demand today, sex trafficking will end tomorrow. Thank you for listening to me.